Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive digital mystery that recently sent absolute shockwaves through one of the most high-stakes, fiercely competitive educational landscapes in the entire world. We're talking about the allegations surrounding India's premier engineering entrance exam, the JEE Advanced. Rumors of a huge data breach spread like wildfire across the internet, and honestly, it sparked immediate panic among students, parents, and educators. But what actually happened behind the screens? Was this a catastrophic cybersecurity failure, or just a massive internet overreaction? We're going to break down the claims, the technical defenses, and the undeniable facts directly from the source material so we can finally separate the fiction from the reality. Because right off the bat, this is the terrifying question that started the whole thing. Just imagine this for a second. You spend years of your life, literally sacrificing sleep, social events, your teenage years, preparing for this single, life-altering test, only to wake up and read that your private data and test information might have been left completely unguarded on the internet. That was the stark, terrifying reality facing the JEA Advanced 2026 cohort. This allegation wasn't framed as just some minor glitch. People were calling it a fundamental collapse of digital trust. And to really put the sheer scale of this into perspective, 1,79,694. That is the exact number of candidates who appeared for both papers of the JEE Advanced exam this year. So we're not talking about a small internal pop quiz here. We are talking about the futures of nearly 200,000 of the brightest young minds in the country. The stakes in this digital mystery literally could not be higher. Every single one of these candidates had a massive vested interest in the absolute security of this system. Section 1. A hacker's bold claim. Okay. Let's dive into this. How did this entire controversy even start? Well, to understand the panic, we first have to look at the inciting incident. And the discoverer? It wasn't a rival cybersecurity firm or an internal whistleblower. The claim came from Rylene Anil, who is a 12th standard student and an ethical hacker operating all the way from Dubai. It's kind of a wild modern phenomenon, isn't it? A high schooler sitting in the Middle East allegedly poking holes in the digital armor of India's premier engineering institution. He actually took to X to announce these findings to the whole world.
Let's look exactly at what he claimed. His post stated that a publicly accessible cloud storage endpoint linked to the JEE Advanced Results portal could be accessed without authentication. Now, for anyone who works in tech or honestly just uses the internet, without authentication are basically the two scariest words you can possibly hear when it comes to a database. It implies there were zero passwords, no firewalls, basically no digital bouncers at the door. Just a wide open window into a massive repository of candidate data. Unsurprisingly, the internet reacted instantly and aggressively. Netizens immediately feared a large-scale privacy breach affecting lakhs of aspirants. That phrase, large-scale privacy breach, completely dominated the conversation. People were assuming the absolute worst, that sensitive personal details, addresses, phone numbers, and most importantly, the integrity of the exam scores themselves were just floating around out there for anyone to grab or manipulate. The panic was totally palpable. Section 2. IIT Roorkee's technical defense. But you know, a claim is just a claim until it's properly investigated. The institution responsible for conducting the exam, IIT Roorkee, did not stay quiet. They stepped right up with a detailed technical explanation and laid out a precise chronological timeline. According to them, on June 2nd, they had to run some expedited technical interventions to help candidates who couldn't access their admit cards. During this really rushed fix, a minimal and temporary misconfiguration happened in a cloud storage component. That's our second window, when the Dubai-based hacker spotted the vulnerability. But then, in step 3, IIT Roorkee states that the second this configuration error was identified, they rectified it immediately, forcefully restricting all access. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that IIT Roorkee clarified a super vital piece of the puzzle. The affected storage was entirely read-only. Basically, this means data can only be viewed. No outside party could edit, alter, or delete any of the records. So that absolute nightmare scenario of a hacker sneaking in and maliciously changing student scores or wiping the whole database clean, according to the institute's own architecture, that was technically impossible. Section 3, the actual data impact. Okay, so if the data couldn't be changed, was it at least stolen? Let's look at the actual measurable impact of this temporary glitch. The internet's viral fear was mass data extraction and manipulated results, but IIT Roorkee's stated reality is a whole lot different. Beyond that read-only access we just talked about, the institute actually conducted a full forensic analysis of their cloud access logs. Their conclusion?
absolutely zero bulk downloads occurred. Nobody swooped in and scraped the database. They firmly stated no sensitive info was compromised or mass extracted. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Based on IIT Roorkee's log analysis, that read-only access was limited to less than 0.05% of the data, meaning more than 99.95% of the data was completely secure and totally untouched during that brief window. It really shrinks the scale of this from a catastrophic national breach to a highly isolated, localized, and ultimately contained error. And to put the final nail in the coffin of all those rumors, the Institute issued an absolute guarantee about the core integrity of the test. They stressed that the incident had zero impact on examination outcomes, zero impact on candidate marks, zero impact on all India ranks, and zero impact on the category of the candidates. The fundamental results of the JEE Advanced remained entirely pristine. Which brings us to this incredibly important number right here, 56,880. Out of the roughly 1.7 lakh students who sat for both papers, this is the exact number of students who actually qualified. By firmly denying the breach's impact, the institution officially reassured these 56,880 candidates that their hard-earned outcomes, all those late-night studying, their entire academic futures were never in jeopardy. Their achievements stand 100% legitimate. Section 4. The broader exam crisis. Now, this whole thing leaves us with a pretty lingering question. If the data impact was mathematically negligible and got fixed so fast, why was the public so incredibly quick to panic? Why assume the absolute worst? Well, it's because the JEE Advanced situation didn't happen in a vacuum. It's like a giant puzzle. The public was already on extremely high alert because simultaneous, massive controversies were rocking other national educational pillars. The NEET UG medical exam was actively battling its own severe controversies. The CBSE board was dealing with heavily criticized on-screen marking crises. So when the phrase JEE Advanced alleged data breach hit social media, people were practically primed to expect a catastrophic failure. National trust was already heavily fractured. Because the national atmosphere was just so volatile, the response had to escalate way beyond just IIT Roorkee. The Union Ministry of Education itself actually had to step in to de-escalate things. They issued a definitive statement saying reports of data breach and privacy violations were misleading. Candidate information, exam records, marks, and rankings remained completely secure, intact, and safe. The absolute highest level of educational authority in the country had to publicly throw its weight behind this defense to finally quell the panic and restore faith. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today and leaves us with a really profound thought to chew on. We've seen how a temporary, rushed fix led to a minor vulnerability, which then sparked a massive national panic, fueled by this existing climate of distrust. So the question we have to ask ourselves moving forward is this. In an era of constant cyber threats and incredibly high-stakes testing, how can institutions permanently safeguard the digital trust of millions of students? Because as we've clearly seen today, in the digital age, securing the actual data is only half the battle. The other half is securing the public's confidence. Thanks for joining me as we unpacked the facts behind the headlines. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.